Definitely, especially for what actually happened during the course of the night, right there in the NBA, though virtual, but then, the needed, result was actually guaranteed right there. 60, young stars were actually, picked right there. And of course, we're looking forward to these guys, especially the 8 Nigerians that were able to actually make it into that particular one. And, that says a lot about, how popular, Nigeria might just be right there in diaspora. Looking forward to that fantastic, a season coming up right there in the NBA.
Okay, let's just start off from the NBA. Before we get into the draft proper, let's talk about the 2021 playoffs, where the NBA have expanded the 2021 playoffs with play-in tournaments in each conference. That's according to the report that we got yesterday. The 2020-2021 NBA postseason will be expanded to include a play-in tournament in each conference. The pandemic-shortened regular season, reduced to 72 games, will start on the 22nd of December, with the postseason beginning on the 18th of May. Now, 10 teams in each conference will advance to the postseason, with teams seeded 7th through 10th participating in the play-in tournament to gain admission to the conference playoffs. The coronavirus pandemic truncated the 2019-2020 season and forced a delayed start to the upcoming season. The NBA Board of Governors announced the season would be established in two segments. The first from December 22nd to March 4th, followed by the All-Star break from the 5th of March to 10th of March, with the second half of the season returning, running from the 11th of March to 16th of May. The teams with the 7 best and 8 best records in each conference will play one game, with the winner becoming the number 7 seed in the playoffs. And the team with the 9th and 10th best records will play a game, with the winner of that contest then meeting the loser of the 7 to 8 game for the right to become the number 8 seed in the playoffs. I think this brings more games for those teams, especially those ones who are between that 7th to 8th to 10th position, hoping to get a playoff spot. The 72 game schedule compared to the traditional 82 game season will not be perfectly balanced. Well, they announced that in the press release yesterday. But for the draft and trades, the Orlando Magic have signed rookie forward Chuma Okeke. The president, according to the president of that team, Orlando Magic, Jeff Weltman, he announced yesterday, and per team policy, the terms of the deal were not disclosed. But then he said, "We are thrilled to welcome Chuma to the team. He's demonstrated all the characteristics that we had seen in him when we drafted him, and look forward to him starting his career with us." He was drafted last year, that's in the 2019 NBA draft, but he didn't get to play with them. But now he's joining the team to sign. He signed the rookie contract, and then he will be joining Orlando Magic. And he played and started in 38 games during the 2018-2019 campaign as a sophomore at Auburn University, averaging 12 points per game, 6.8 rebounds per game, 1.9 assists per game, 1.82 steal per game, and 1.21 block per game, all in 29.1 minutes per game, while shooting about .387 from the 3-point range. Some talent there for Orlando Magic. And the Philadelphia 76ers have acquired Seth Curry, that's Steph Curry's brother, from the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Josh Richardson and the 36th overall pick, the team announced. Curry brings elite shooting skills to the Sixers. The 30-year-old guard shot a career-high 45.2% from the 3-point range last season. In addition, Curry is married to Callie Rivers, the daughter of Sixers coach Doc Rivers. It is a basketball family there. And then to the draft. Feromi, let's talk about this. The number 1 pick, surprisingly, didn't go to LaMelo Ball. It went instead to Anthony Edwards, who were drafted by Timberwolves, and the second pick was by the Golden State Warriors. They drafted James Wiseman. The third pick happened to be LaMelo Ball, drafted by the Hornets. And for the Nigerians on the list, in number 5, the first round pick, Isaac Okoro was drafted by Cleveland Cavaliers. In the number 6, the Atlanta Hawks drafted Onyeka Okongwu. And 20th, that's still in first round, Precious Achionwa was drafted by the Miami Heat. And Denver Nuggets drafted Zeke Naji, that's Ezekiel Okechukwu Naji, in 22nd round, in the 22nd pick rather, in the first round. And the 27th pick in the first round went to Udoka Azubike, who was drafted by the Utah Jazz. In the second round, Timberwolves drafted Akinfayose Daniel Uthuru, who reportedly has been traded to Clippers after first being dealt to the Knicks, and then 45th pick in the second round, overall pick now. The Milwaukee Bucks drafted Jordan Nwora, who is already an international here for us in Nigeria, playing with the D Tigers.
I mean, that was a very, very fantastic one right there from Milwaukee Bucks. Looking for someone to continue to complement what Giannis has been doing right there. You've got yourself a very fantastic shooter right there in Nwora, and which will definitely add more quality going forward, for that particular team. But for me, I think I wasn't surprised when the first pick actually went to Anthony Edwards, because it was definitely amongst the top three that was definitely predicted to be.
But spotlight was on LaMelo.
Yeah, spotlight was on LaMelo. But I think Minnesota actually played a smart one right there by actually going for Anthony Edwards. He's not saying he had a very bad record for him. It's a very decent one, which I think might add more quality if they decide to actually stick with him, because it's not a must to actually keep your draft. You can decide to actually trade them for players in other teams, or even for money right there during this time that. But it's all good for these teams that they've actually been able to pick, especially for the less privileged, because they're the ones that actually get to pick first. Those that do not make it to the postseason, the last 14.
Who are the horrible season?
Yeah, who are the very, very horrible season, I must say. Those are the ones that actually get to pick first, and they've been given that opportunity to pick some of the best. Yes. So I think it's a huge opportunity for them to be able to trade for other players, good players to join them, or for money to come into their post right there. So I think NBA draft has made it so flexible, easy for these guys to be able to also compete when the new season starts. So I think that's one of the major lessons why I really love this NBA draft for.
Because if you are opposed to the transfer system in football.
Exactly, because if you are given the big guys to actually continue picking first, trust me, I don't think no other person will be able to match up with them.
I mean, it wouldn't be like Bayern Munich buying all of the best players.
You understand?
So it takes away the tag of less privileged. Now they will be privileged.
They are still less privileged as far as I'm concerned. Until next season, let them prove themselves. But for now, they are.
But then it's left to be seen how it will turn out. There are draft busts as well. Yeah. Some will be, you might be the first picked player, and then eventually you turn out
a good career.
Having a terrible career. I remember Greg Oden in the 2007 NBA draft. It was the number one pick, but then look at how his career actually turned out. He didn't. He's one of the biggest draft busts ever. And then you also look at that particular season, Kevin Durant came in number 2. People thought Durant would be picked by Portland in that particular one, but they went ahead to pick Odin, and then it didn't turn out well. So I know whether you're picked in 1 and 2, it depends on how maybe injuries and several factors that can definitely affect your career will maybe be kind to you or not. So I'll wait to see, but hopefully we'll be able to maybe see some very, very great Nigerian stars, just like we've seen. I know you've mentioned about 8 of them or so. So maybe we'll be able to get the best out of them, and then definitely the Tigers would also be able to get the best out of these guys.
Okay, well, that's it from basketball. But just before we leave, if you're a fan of Golden State Warriors, I'm sorry, this is not good news for you. We're hearing that Klay Thompson is undergoing tests after suffering apparent lower leg injury. Remember, he missed the entire 2019-2020 season due to injury, and it looks like he won't be back on time for the start of the new season. Away from basketball, straight into tennis, the Australian Open organizers are scrambling to try to find a satisfactory way to staging the tournament after the Victorian government threw a major spanner in the works. The Tennis Australia, the ATP and WTA have been planning on the proviso that most players would look to arrive in the country in mid-December in order to be able to complete a mandatory 2-week quarantine period prior to competing in the warm-up event in the first 2 weeks of January. But tournament director Craig Tiley struck an upbeat note earlier in the week when he announced that the warm-up events would all be held in Victoria to prevent issues with players traveling between states. But then that was swiftly changed after they said it wasn't a done deal, and it looks like that might not be working eventually. So they are looking to postpone the Australian Open, which is the first Grand Slam in the tennis calendar year, but it's not cast in stone yet. Anything can still happen. And at the ATP finals in London, Novak Djokovic suffered a shock 6-3, 6-3 defeat to Daniil Medvedev. That's yesterday, a result which sent the Russian through to the semi-finals, but left the world number one's hopes of joining him in the balance. Medvedev, who failed to win a match on his debut last year, reeled off 7 games in a row at one point and never looked like faltering as the steamrolled over out of sorts Djokovic. The guaranteed Medvedev will top the Tokyo 1970 group, while Djokovic, who has a sight set on a record equaling 6 titles, faces a straight fight against Zverev for the second qualifying spot. So it could go either way for Djokovic in this one. And remember, not just him, Rafael Nadal as well. He got stunned in his own game by Dominic Thiem. That's in the London 2020 group there. Away from the tennis, straight into football. There's an update from the Nigerian scene. The NPFL preseason games going on. Shooting Stars, they started live very, very brightly in their first match yesterday. It was a very, very flying start for them after they defeated Nilayo FC of Abeokuta by 5-1. And they have a game this morning to continue the Dapo Abiodun preseason tournament that will be played later today. Well, some fixtures rather today. We'll see MFM against Crown FC, 7 a.m. That game should be on as we speak. Nilayo against Kwara United. Lobby Stars against Good Sky. Rivers United against Bendel Insurance. And Gateway United against Wadi Wolves. To all of those fixtures at the Dapo Abiodun preseason tournament cup today. And Remo Stars versus Shooting Stars will now hold on Saturday morning and not today as earlier fixed. Updates from the NPFL and straight to the Super Eagles of Nigeria, guys. A legendary goalkeeper Peter Rufai says the Super Eagles coach Genotro is not getting it right with the regular invitation of new players to the team, adding that the national team is not a place where you keep changing players. Listen to Peter Rufai.
At this point, we are really not getting it right when it comes to players that ought to be called into the national team. The national team is not a place where you keep changing players, one match, another player, next match, another player after 2 months, another player after 3 months. No. National team positions are positions given to best players of such positions. And those players can be substituted only when there are needs. And before this need arises, the coaches or the technical team must have screened around the country to find alternatives and communicate with the coach who trains these players and now collect a report of assessment from these coaches about these players, not about what he is saying.
Peter Rufai seems to think that Genotro is on a very wrong path here with the constant changing of players. I mean, you have to look at how many players he has used since he became coach. Well, of course, perhaps he has a point in that, but is it really wrong?
Well, I think I subscribe to the school of thought that Peter Rufai actually brought into the fray this time around. You should have your core of players. You should know these are the players playing for the Super Eagles, and you build a team around those players. Maybe you have, then you realize you have the deficiencies in specific positions. Then you go all out to get the best in those positions, and then you build a core of very good players. There's nothing wrong in giving so many people their chance, but once you've given people their chance, and then you've selected your best, maybe 20 or thereabouts, 22, 23, then those are the people you want to work with, and then you don't begin to chop and change and begin to try different things here and there. It shows that you don't know what you're doing. It doesn't show assertiveness. It doesn't show that, we know at the line of action, we have a particular style of play, and we're looking for players that fit this style of play. But, difficult periods like this when results are not going right, that is when people begin to come out, begin to hear opinions here and there. And, if you're getting it right, people will not question your methods. People wouldn't question the way you go about, navigating or executing your duties. But it's so unfortunate that right now we're having to look at all these things. And despite all the, array of stars that we have in our team, we still fall short in terms of making the right substitution at different times in games. So I hope Raw will listen to all these things, and going forward, it will make the necessary changes.
And now that the Minister of Youth and Sports is hinting at a possible sack of Genotro, do we have the money to pay him off? At least we expected to pay about 457.2 million naira if you have to pay him off.
These guys, well, I think it won't be sacked. Actually, I think it's just more like a wake-up call for Genotro to actually buckle up and all that a little bit, to put him under pressure that hey, you need to get all the results. It's needed at this point in time.
Call on Twitter.
Well, maybe something might have been done behind the scene, just that on Twitter, just to show the world, okay, we are not sleeping, we are doing something. Maybe something is being done behind the scene. But for me, I think it's not even going to be wise at this point in time to sack him, just because of 2 bad game, so to say. I think, we should still give him time. And probably the best thing that might actually be done is maybe when his contract expires and he doesn't actually deliver, maybe he shouldn't be given another contract. Another person should be brought on board. But for him to be sacked at this point in time, I think it's going to be a very, very unwise decision for me.
Okay, let's move over to the UEFA Nations League, where Romelu Lukaku scored twice as Belgium secured their place at the Nations League final with victory over Denmark. And that means that they joined France, Spain and Italy in the finals, which will take place in October in 2021. This is the BBC Premier League update.
BBC Premier League update from the home of Premier League football.
Hello, I'm Andy Barwell at the BBC Sports Centre. The Manchester City youngster Phil Foden starred for England in their European Nations League win over Iceland at Wembley Stadium. Foden scored twice in the 4-0 success. West Ham's Declan Rice and Chelsea's Mason Mount scored the other goals. The former England international defender Matthew Upson was impressed with Gareth Southgate's team.
Cruise control for England here this evening, you have to say. They've done a very professional job, played well at times, moments of real skill, but on the whole they've just generally been in control. It's very difficult to tell. Iceland was so inferior to England and beat Iceland convincingly. It's been a decent evening all round.
Leicester City's Yuri Tielemans and Manchester City's Kevin De Bruyne got a goal apiece for Belgium in a 4-2 victory at home to Denmark as they qualify for the last four of the Nations League. It looks like Liverpool will be without striker Mo Salah for the next two matches following a second positive coronavirus test result while on international duty with Egypt. The former Premier League striker Chris Sutton has told the BBC that football authorities don't take the issue of dementia seriously enough. Heading the football has come under scrutiny. Sutton's father, Mike, played professionally for more than 20 years himself and suffers from the condition.
The game isn't supporting my dad, it hasn't supported my dad, but it's not my dad. It is hundreds upon hundreds of other ex-players and families. We saw John Stiles speak, Dawn Astle, she speaks so well about it. It's affecting players and the families, and the authorities aren't doing enough and haven't done anywhere near enough.
And for more football news from the BBC, go to bbc.com/football.
BBC Premier League update from the home of Premier League football.
Okay, our final strike on Sports Bank this morning. Front page of Sporting Life. Messi to Manchester City could be on for £50 million. And Ramos and Varane are injured. Could be out of the game against Villarreal this weekend. And not just that, Sergio Busquets is out for 2 weeks as well. We will be missing for that game against Atletico Madrid. And Lionel Messi is saying he's fed up, tired of being blamed for all of Messi's problems. Okay, maybe you should go find out what exactly he's talking about there. Klopp keen to coach Mbappe amid Liverpool talk. Wijnaldum tempted by move away from Liverpool. Son returns to Spurs early for Tottenham versus Manchester City this weekend. And shoulder injury, no surgery for Osimhen. Eagle star is out of Milan clash. Smalling suffers food poisoning. Okay, Milinkovic-Savic positive for COVID-19. And Liverpool versus Leicester City this weekend. Ndidi is back and is back in training with the Foxes. Guys, your parting shot this morning. You have to leave. Fermi.
Yeah, finally. The real football is back. We're looking forward to that.
Real football. Have we had fake football over 10 days?
Well, that's what I believe. Real football is back.
Yeah, it's been a tough couple of maybe days now in the past. I'm sure we've had a tough time in the world of football generally, and luckily we're having football coming back, and we're looking forward to those big games coming up later in the weekend.
All right, so looking forward to those big games, but before that, tomorrow on Sports Bank at 7:30, you can always, winning Friday edition of the show, you can always win something for yourself for the weekend. We're back here on Saturday. I'll be back here on Saturday with World Sport, and we have a very big interview lined up for Saturday with a young golfing sensation. Thanks for being a part of the show this morning. Thanks to Fermi Adeboyega and Faith Adedeji. My name is Blessing Fowowe. Have a great Thursday morning. Au revoir.
Splash FM 105.5.